Hello, friends. This is another episode of the program Empire of Lies, in which we talk about manipulation and disinformation of the Russian media. Europe in the crosshairs of someone else's rhetoric. Today's episode of 60 Minutes by Olga Skabeeva showed again, Russia is not so much analysing reality as trying to rewrite it. The topic of drones that flew into Poland became key. In the studio, it was presented as Warsaw's hysteria and NATO's escalation. And Donald Trump, according to the broadcast, allegedly shocked the Allies by offering an ultimatum. Europe must completely refuse Russian oil, otherwise there will be no sanctions. On the one hand, we hear the usual set of mantras. Sanctions do not work. Ukraine is to blame. Europe is tired of war. On the other hand, a new twist is noticeable. The emphasis is on the fact that it is Europe that must pay the price, cut off energy flows, impose duties on India and China, and get involved in the war to the end. Manipulation number one. Negotiations are possible, but propaganda readily quotes Trump. The meeting between Putin and Zelensky will take place relatively soon. But then it throws in a condition, only if Europe stops buying Russian oil. This is a classic technique. First show hope, then turn it into an instrument of pressure. It is important for the European reader to understand, Moscow does not strive for peace at all. It is using the topic of negotiations as a smokescreen to shift the entire economic burden of the conflict onto the EU and at the same time undermine transatlantic unity. Manipulation number two. Sanctions do not work, hit your allies. The studio is seriously discussing Senator Lindsey Graham's proposal to introduce tariffs against all BRICS countries. It would seem, why would Russia broadcast such a radical idea? The answer is simple. By pushing the West towards maximalism, the Kremlin is counting on a split within the EU. After all, it is obvious that a united Europe is not ready to close its doors to India or China tomorrow. The reality is different. Sanctions are working slowly but consistently. Russia's defense industry is suffering from a shortage of components, and the budget is cracking from dependence on oil and gas revenues. Calls to beat everyone in a row are not advice but a trap. Moscow wants Europe to quarrel with the rest of the world. Manipulation number three. Drones over Poland are not scary, but funny. Russian presenters are happy to ridicule NATO. They say that the alliance spends millions on Patriot missiles to shoot down foam dummies. The goal is obvious, to instill in the European viewer the idea that defense is useless and too expensive. But the truth is that these attacks are testing the resilience of alliances. Each drone is a test of our reaction, our ability to integrate air defense, and our political resolve. And if Moscow succeeds in making us laugh along with Skabeeva, tomorrow it will test its strength not with drones, but with something much more dangerous. Trump literally shocked his allies with his ultimatum. He will impose sanctions against Russia when and if Europe completely cuts off the flow of Russian oil. But as the New York Times writes, this demand looks more like a political game. Key buyers in the form of the same Turkey, Hungary, whose leaders Trump himself admires, do not think of giving up cheap Russian energy. The US Congress, in their connection a real storm, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, known for her Russophobic views, demands to strike not at Russia, but at its partners, at all Brexit countries without exception. Graham calls for monstrous tariffs of 50 or even 100%, stating that sanctions against Putin himself do not work. He does not care about them. So someone else needs to be punished. All the details in our story. You know, I stopped 7 wars. I thought that stopping the conflict in Ukraine would be easy, but it turned out to be difficult. The hatred between Zelensky and Putin is incredible. On the airfield in Niger, Trump tells reporters 3 times that personal animosity is preventing the settlement of the Ukrainian conflict. But do you still believe that they will have a dialogue? I don't know. I'll have to do all the talking. They hate each other. Manipulation number 4. The West is rushing to war and Russia is defending itself. Familiar accusations are heard on the air. Europe is preparing for a big war, knows that Moscow will not dare to use nuclear weapons, turning Ukraine into a springboard. This inversion is the Kremlin's main narrative. The aggressor portrays itself as a victim, and the victim as an aggressor. For Europeans, a detail is important here. If we accept this narrative, the war will cease to be the result of a Russian invasion and will turn into an inevitable conflict of civilizations. This is a dangerous substitution, leading to fatigue and indifference. Russian television does not only work for the domestic public. Each such release is a signal to the outside. Europe is tired, the US is wavering, and Russia is strong and ready for a long fight. Today's broadcast of 60 Minutes is not news, but a diagnosis. Russian propaganda demonstrates a mixture of fatigue, anger, and, at the same time, confidence that Europe will be the first to waver. You were on the program Empire of Lies. See you soon.